2/3 of Americans take Social Security before full retirement age, 2 out of 3. And if you listen to most of the financial internet, that means 2/3 of Americans are making a huge mistake, a permanent mistake, a costly mistake, a mistake they'll regret for the rest of their lives. But what if that's not true? What if millions of people claiming Social Security at 62 are not confused, not careless, not financially illiterate, but rational? What if taking Social Security at 62 is sometimes the smartest move you can make? Because here's the part nobody in finance wants to admit. The advice to wait until 70 sounds smart because it's simple. Wait longer, get a bigger check. End of story. But retirement is not a slogan, it's not a spreadsheet, and it's definitely not one size fits all. Because the second you stop looking at generic math and start looking at real life, the whole conversation changes. Health changes it, marriage changes it, survivor benefits change it, job loss changes it, portfolio withdrawals change it, pensions change it. And suddenly, the obvious answer doesn't look so obvious anymore. In this video, I'm going to walk you through why claiming Social Security at 62 can actually be the smarter move. Not for everyone, but for a lot more people than the financial media likes to admit. And by the end, you'll understand why this decision is not about what sounds smartest in theory. It's about what works best for your actual life. If you want more breakdowns like this, hit subscribe to Naomi Capital right now. Now, let's start with the part everybody already knows. Yes, waiting gives you a bigger monthly benefit. For anyone born in 1960 or later, full retirement age is 67. If you claim at 62, your benefit is permanently reduced by about 30%. If your full retirement benefit would have been $4,000 a month at 67, claiming at 62 drops it to around $2,800. And if you wait until 70, delayed retirement credits increase it even more. So, on the surface, the conventional wisdom sounds airtight. Why would anyone choose less money? Because that question hides a much bigger assumption. It assumes you'll live long enough for waiting to pay off. That's the whole game. The wait until 70 strategy only wins if you live long enough to collect those bigger checks for enough years to make up for the smaller checks you didn't take earlier. That point is the break even age. If you compare claiming at 62 versus 67, the break even point is roughly around age 78. If you compare 62 versus 70, it's around age 80 or 81. That means if you claim at 62 and die in your mid 70s, taking the money earlier may have been the better move, not emotionally, financially. And that changes everything because now the question is no longer which option gives me the biggest check. Now the question becomes how long do I realistically think I'm going to live? That is not a fun question, but it's a real one. If your health is unstable, if chronic conditions are already in the picture, if your family history suggests shorter lifespans, pretending you'll definitely live to 90 isn't optimism. It's fantasy, and fantasy is expensive. A bigger Social Security check at 70 is worthless if you don't live long enough to enjoy it. That's the first crack in the conventional wisdom. Here's the second. The standard advice assumes this is a solo decision, but for many people, it isn't. It's a household decision. The second you introduce a spouse into the equation, the math changes fast because your spouse may be depending on your filing date to unlock their own benefits. Your spouse generally cannot collect spousal benefits until you file for your own retirement benefit. So if your spouse has little or no work history, or their own benefit is much smaller than yours, your delay may not just be delaying your income, it may be delaying your household income. That's a huge difference. Imagine this. You're 62 with a strong earnings record. Your spouse is also 62 with minimal work credits. You decide to wait until 70 because the internet told you that's the mathematically superior move. But now your spouse may wait 8 extra years before receiving any meaningful spousal benefit. That is 8 years of household income you gave up. Yes, your personal check will be larger later, but your family may have lost years of usable cash flow in the meantime. That's why optimizing the individual check is not the same as optimizing the household result. And for married couples, that distinction can completely change the answer. Now let's go one level deeper. Survivor benefits. When one spouse dies, the surviving spouse can often switch to the higher benefit. That means the timing of filing doesn't just affect what happens while both of you are alive, it can affect what one person lives on after the other is gone. Sometimes the higher earner should delay while the lower earner claims early. Sometimes one spouse's health profile changes the whole strategy. Sometimes survivor planning matters more than the basic break even math people obsess over online. This is not about optimizing one check, it's about coordinating income across two lives. Now, let's talk about something that sounds backward at first. There are situations where having more assets can actually make claiming early more attractive. If you've stopped working and you have a sizable portfolio, claiming Social Security earlier can reduce how much you need to withdraw from your investments during the first years of retirement. And that matters because of sequence of returns risk. If the market drops early in retirement while you're withdrawing heavily from your portfolio, the damage can be permanent. But if Social Security covers part of your expenses earlier, you may be able to withdraw less from your investments. That leaves more money invested, more money compounding, more money protected from bad timing. In some cases, preserving the portfolio early can create a better outcome than waiting for a larger Social Security check later. There's also a more aggressive version of this strategy. Some people claim early because they want to invest the Social Security payments themselves. Now, this is not for everyone, but the logic is straightforward. If you claim at 62 instead of 70, you get 8 additional years of payments. Yes, the checks are smaller, but they arrive earlier. And if you don't need that money for living expenses, you can invest it. If those investments outperform the return you effectively get by delaying, then claiming early may come out ahead. But this comes with real risk because markets are not guaranteed. If you give up a guaranteed larger benefit for speculative returns and those returns don't happen, you made a bad trade. Now, let's talk about another overlooked reason claiming at 62 may be smart: bridging. A lot of retirees don't have smooth income timelines. Maybe you stop working at 62, but your pension doesn't start until 65, or another guaranteed income source starts later. In that case, Social Security can bridge the gap. It fills the years between the end of work and the beginning of other guaranteed income, and that can help you avoid draining savings too early or selling investments at the wrong time. Now, here's the most practical reason to claim at 62. You need the money. That's it. No elegant strategy, no advanced optimization. You just need the money. Maybe your body won't let you work anymore. Maybe years of physical labor caught up with you. Maybe you were laid off in your early 60s and can't find comparable work. Maybe you plan to work until 67, but life had other ideas. If you can't work and you don't have enough saved to bridge the gap, Social Security exists for exactly this situation. That is what it's for. And using it when you genuinely need it is not failure, it's not weakness. It's not proof that you've done retirement wrong. It is the system working as intended. Because financial media has created this weird shame around claiming early as if smart people delay and weak people don't. That's nonsense. Real life is messier than that. And sometimes good enough now is wiser than optimal later. Now, let me be fair and tell you when claiming at 62 is usually a bad move. If you're still working and earning strong income, early filing often creates unnecessary problems Because before full retirement age, there's an earnings limit. If you earn too much while collecting benefits early, some of those benefits get withheld. So now you've locked in a permanently smaller check and created extra complications at the same time. That usually makes very little sense. Second, if Social Security will be your main source of retirement income, waiting often matters a lot more. Because when Social Security is your financial foundation, every extra dollar in the monthly check matters. And third, if you're healthy, active, and longevity runs in your family, the math often favors waiting. If you're likely to live well past the break even point, delaying generally produces more lifetime income. And that brings us to the most important point in this entire video. There is no universal best age to claim Social Security. There is only the best age for your health, your spouse, your work situation, your savings, your other income, and your actual life expectancy. That's why generic advice is dangerous. It sounds smart because it's clean, but your life isn't clean. Nobody's is. So, what should you do? First, look at your actual benefit estimates at 62, 67, and 70. Second, assess your health honestly. Third, if you're married, optimize for the household, not just yourself. Fourth, map your other income sources. And if this decision still feels overwhelming, get professional help. Because paying a few $100s for the right analysis can be worth tens of thousands in lifetime benefits. At the end of the day, the best financial decisions are not the ones that sound smartest in public. They're the ones that fit your real circumstances in private. And sometimes claiming Social Security at 62 is not giving up. It's not panic. It's not ignorance. It's not failure. Sometimes it's strategy. Sometimes it's realism. Sometimes it's the smartest move on the board. If this changed how you think about Social Security, hit subscribe to Naomi Capital and turn on notifications. And in the comments, tell me this. If you had to choose today, would you claim at 62, 67, or 70? I read every single comment. See you in the next video.